Hey guys, I don't even know what we're doing right now. I really don't.
Anyways, welcome to another episode of Pursuit. It's not that hard to give a greeting. Thank you so very much for joining us tonight, today, whenever you're watching this. We are going to do a quick opening. I think Asha will be doing it. She's going to be asking us questions. So, I
Good
don't remember what the
morning.
questions are. So,
I am your host, Asha Prasad, and these are my guests.
Did you just give her a full name and everything?
Anyways,
she's not on the stage anymore. It's a different person. It's a different person.
I have to make sure you guys still remember me. Okay. My first question for
Yes.
everybody is, what's some advice you wish you had heard in your 20s?
I'm still in my 20s.
Okay, well, in your in your in your life,
In your early 20s?
in your early 20s.
That what you wanted to do when you were younger doesn't have to be what you will be doing. Does that make sense? It's like your dream job as like a kid or a teenager doesn't have to be your end goal career.
Um,
10 points to Gryffindor.
I'm trying to say this without copying what I heard on the internet, but there is a clip of Tom Hanks talking with like a bunch of other actors,
Ah.
right? And he basically says, this too shall pass. So really, the advice would be, time keeps moving. So whatever's happening, it's gonna pass at some point, and then there'll be something else, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Time kind of just keeps moving. That's it.
Good answers. Good answers.
5 points to Ravenclaw.
Are you even hearing this on?
Yes,
Yeah.
What's a piece of advice you got that you never let go of? What's a piece of advice that you've received that you've never let go
You had to repeat it.
of?
I'll let you go first.
Pray more.
I guess. I feel like if I say anything else now, it's gonna be so bad. No. One of the things, a piece of advice I was given was finish strong. Um, it's easy to get tired when you're going through stuff. Along those same lines of what I said before about time passing. Um, so one of the things I also was always try to finish whatever it is, just finish strong, finish in a good place.
Solid.
Good answer.
Thank
well,
you.
I'd be forgetting things.
Why didn't I use that as an excuse? Because I actually do forget things.
You do. I feel like a solid piece of advice that someone has given. Oh, someone told me this recently. Actually, it was Open Darko, Reverend Open Darko, when he was here the other day. He was talking to like me, my mom, and my dad and stuff, and he was like, because he doesn't like he's seen me grow up, but he doesn't know me like that, like to like a deep level. But he was like, just don't lose your light, right? Like your energy, like because I'm a very nice person, right? So he was like, "Don't lose your sweetness, like your light within you." Um, no, he what? Oh, him? I couldn't care less. Anyways, he was like, "Just don't lose your light," and I think it's very easy, especially with like this day and age, to get discouraged with a lot of things. So I would say that. I like it.
Next question.
Ramy's answer. Oh, she's asking.
Okay, I'm asking this question. What is a piece of clothing you've been into lately?
Piece of clothing. I'm like, it's a transitional season, so I'm like changing things out. I recently discovered these pants.
Very nice.
It's an elastic waist, so it's like
Yes.
really stretchy.
Elastic waist over everything.
Yeah. So we'll see how many times I wear these.
I've been really into this hoodie right now, just cause.
Yeah, literally every other time I see Kevin, he's wearing this hoodie,
Well, if you've noticed, I basically just switch it between the two
the
for
black
every
and the
episode.
white.
Yeah. So it's really hard to keep track of what I've worn and what I haven't. That, and I also have a hoodie from my archery range that if I'm not in this, I'm probably in that. Yeah.
I do. I always steal my dad's sweaters, so I'm into his sweaters and like jackets.
Okay. What is your least favorite word or phrase that you think is overused?
I feel like I can't even say that because there are a lot of things that I say like as a joke that just become my vocabulary. So I can't even say that, oh, I hate this phrase, because then I know I'm gonna end up saying it in like 2 weeks.
Not for nothing, far. I have no clue what you said.
What's your like least favorite word or phrase?
Well, thanks.
That like I use regularly, or just that people say.
No, that people say.
In general. In general.
I don't really have one. I don't think so. Yeah,
I know a lot of people don't like the word moist.
that doesn't bother me. I
But-
don't- like. I don't get. I know people. Yeah, I know people that bothers. I don't know why that bothers people.
Okay. Tell me about a favorite event of your childhood.
Of my childhood. I have a lot. So the way we grew up is there was like 5 houses and they were all my cousins on the same block. So I don't know, we just got up to a lot of things. Like one time Ashley lived a house away from me, right? And she wanted to have an ice cream bar. We were probably like between 10 and 12 at this point. So she was like, okay, bring over stuff for the ice cream bar and whatever. And so we did that. And then her mom found out and got mad because like, their house was like very, not healthy per se, but like the sweets were controlled. So she found out that we like had an ice cream bar and like we got in trouble, but it was still like, I don't know, it was a good memory. Because I just went over with like a bowl of Nesquik to put on our ice cream. Or like Milo or something as like a topping. I was like, why would
Wait,
I put
the powder?
Yeah.
He has to have a good childhood.
I
Wait,
thought you meant
that's-
like the Nesquik, like because there is a
The
syrup.
syrup. No, like Milo, like powder.
Jeez. No, I think she was more mad about that than.
No. Well, that was my, like, from our house. No, I don't know. Because, like, our parents were working, so the only one that was home with us was our grandma. And she was, like, she was old since before we were born. So. Like, love you, girl. You know? Always. But, like, she's been old my whole life. So. That was a good memory.
what
We also used to have, like, club
the
wars
definition of
where we split up into
grandma
2 different groups and we would just have like competitions. So we would also play like family where Lex and Ashley would be the parents and Mikael and Amber would be the siblings, the like kids. Mikael and Amber also had a girl band,
What was the name?
Connect 3 Girl Style. Our song was Mary Did You Know?
That's a banger. That is a banger.
And
You
if
know,
you
she's making a comeback in like 2 weeks.
and if you stay tuned for the next episode, they will perform this one.
Do you remember the song Shackles?
Yeah.
Someone sampled that for like a secular song recently.
I've heard it.
It
I've
came
heard
to, and I'm like, what is happening right
Yeah.
now?
I've seen that. So yeah, exactly. I thought that was like Keisha.
Yeah,
and,
that
like,
was Keisha.
Kissa and like Joanne and stuff.
I mean, I was in there too, but like, you know. Oh my
Not the
goodness.
original set.
Oh my. Well, because I'm younger.
Okay, so
Jeez.
we're talking about the original
Anywho,
one.
Yeah.
my childhood. I remember specifically, I had this friend, and we were way younger. I was probably like 5. She was like 4. So we were in her garage, and I really wanted something from. In that garage, you could climb up and get stuff on storage, like all the way close to the ceiling. So I don't know how I got her up there, but then like she was just like hanging, and then like she couldn't like come down because where was the ladder? I don't know. Like I really don't know what happened, but she's screaming, "Help, help!" And our parents were like in the front of the house, so this is the garage in the back of the yard. And I'm just like casually walking, and I'm like, "Hey," and they're like, where is blank? And I was like, oh, she's just hanging around. And then they heard her screaming. And then
Just
her
hanging
parents are like
around.
running to the back, and this girl is just like hanging from the garage, like screaming, crying, as she should, because it was a far drop. And Chrissy was just like, she's okay. And that was like a really good childhood memory for me.
Trauma. Childhood trauma.
Not for me,
Yeah.
but it was like really funny.
There was also one time where we had gummy bears and we threw them from my backyard to Ashley's house to see if they would stick.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Kevin, do you have a childhood event?
Did you have a childhood?
I did not have a childhood.
He was old from since you were born.
Exactly. No, I think a lot of my memories involve like some of my friends from church and stuff like that. So just grew up with them. One in particular was for some reason they were having a youth committee meeting at the youth leader's house. So I don't know. I was probably maybe middle school or something. So my friend and I, we're not even in youth group, but his dad's the youth leader. We're in his living room while they're having the meeting, playing like video games and yelling at each other, and no one said
In
anything.
the
And
middle of the meeting.
yes, and up to now, I don't know how this happened. That I don't even know why I was there, because really only my brother that was in there. I don't know why he felt nice enough to bring me along at that time, because I would have been like such a pain to him at that point. So I'm like, I don't know what happened that day, but it just sticks out in my head that we were just playing and we didn't have 2-player games. We have 1-player games, so we're just switching back and forth. Right?
explains a lot.
Half of the games that he had, we didn't even know how to play them. So like he had like a racing game up, like I've found it back on like emulators and stuff. I still don't know how to play it. So we would just crash in a racing game and then yell at each other, and then the other person would do it and do the same thing. And that was one of like probably the best times we had together as friends. And then there's a lot of other stuff like just nonsense we did that I'm not gonna say for legal reasons.
Sweet.
Wait, I have one more. So, me and another group of church friends, one day we were at this girl's house, and there was like a sleepover or something, and her neighbor was so annoying that she came
I
over to
know
play.
this.
You know this. She came to play with us. And so we were making her like the smoothie or
For
like
the record, I was not part of the shenanigans. I was with the little brothers.
And I mean, for the record, I wasn't like directly in it because I was just like, we're gonna get in trouble, and I'm not getting in trouble
I
with
feel
my
like the
mom.
fact that both of you say for the record I'm not involved means you probably shouldn't share the story.
No,
On
it
camera.
Wasn't, it wasn't.
You could cut it, if you want. But anyways, so our other friend, which I'm not gonna name a name, wanted to put dirt, and I think did we actually
I
put
don't
dirt
know.
in this cup and give it to this girl to drink? We're making her like a chocolate drink. So you know the red berries that you find on the shrubs walking around. We took it, we mashed it up. When I say we, I mean the other girls. I was just there
She was an
because like I was at a
accomplice.
sleepover, and where was I supposed to go?
With the little brothers.
Actually, I'm the victim in this situation. But
You are not the victim.
yeah. But anyways,
You know,
We
we
feel
had
bad for that
wholesome stories, right? You know, she got like her
Sorry.
whole family living on one street, so they got to do all this stuff. I got my one friend that I still have, and then you over here
That's the
killing
only friend
people.
he still
You
has.
got like someone hanging off a building, right? And if they're not hanging off the building, you're trying to make people drink dirt. Like what is going on?
I don't know if she actually drank it. I have to text my sources.
Can
I'll
I
let you know
just
in the next
can I
episode.
just say my boring childhood is looking pretty good, and now I understand why mom didn't let me go to people's houses.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. We
Okay.
were all church kids, so I just wanna put that
Okay.
out. I didn't go to no like school kids' houses.
Okay, now would be a good time to start our next. Oh jeez.
Just quickly. Okay, so when I was, I think 11 or so, I was dared by my cousins to stick a hairpin in a socket, and exactly what I did. and I got burned so bad it was crazy, like real bad. I was like, oh
You
my
did
God.
it?
Yes.
She stuck a bobby pin in a socket, a metal
Dude,
bobby pin, and an
I
outlet.
saw the lights, bro. I was-
Anyway, so we're gonna be starting a new series this week. Today we're gonna be speaking about the overall arcing topic is zoom lens, right? Because that's kind of how I feel like Jesus saw people through a zoom lens, which is like amongst the crowd, he'll see like the individual person, he'll relate to them like on a personal level, right? So, as Jesus was going about, preaching the gospel on at his time on earth, right, and he was amassing all these crowds and stuff, I think it's fair to say that he was an influencer.
Yep.
But what does it mean to be an influencer? Anyone?
To have influence.
Wow, thank you so very much for using the word in the definition.
You're welcome.
Can you use it in a sentence?
Influencer or influence? What does it mean to have influence?
to lead other people.
What?
To lead other people.
To lead other people? Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Or
To be a trendsetter.
trendsetter? Okay. Yeah. So, a lot of times we all follow influencers of different kinds, right? So like there are so many different kinds of influencers. There's like beauty gurus, there's lifestyle influencers, there's like sports and like all these different things. But what is it that we actually like about the influencers? What is it that makes us drawn to them?
I mean, typically it's gonna be something that I would say you're interested in first, because I mean, you just gave like a bunch of different. I think some of the major areas people like influence on social media. So obviously you have to be interested in it. I think that's the main thing. And then from there, I also think it's going to be something about maybe either their knowledge of the subject or maybe perceived knowledge of the subject, because maybe they just making stuff up as they go along. You don't know yet. I also think it's going to be a big part of just like their personality, right? Because especially I think with social media, a lot of times, even though we haven't like necessarily met we haven't met a person in real life, because social media, it gives the impression that we kind of do get to know them in a sense. So if their personality is something that would kind of mesh with ours, I think that also would kind of draw us in to them.
Yeah. So I think that kind of leads into my next question, which is what qualities did Jesus have that kind of made him an influencer? Right? So like you said, it's kind of like your personality that draws people in, but what keeps them there? How is he able to capture all of these people and maintain their interest in like what he was doing and in his overall goal?
So again, I think it goes back to just the way I would say Jesus kind of carried himself. Because when you read through the stories and the interactions Jesus has with different people, you actually see that he is, he will often cross maybe like societal boundaries that most people wouldn't. So people who would have been the outcast of that time were included, because Jesus would look past, oh, you have leprosy and you're an untouchable person, but yet Jesus heals 10 lepers in one like
Fell swoop.
There we go. So there are these. I mean, even though woman with the issue of blood, I think she shouldn't have touched him. I feel like there's someone else too.
You
I mean,
think she shouldn't have touched him?
yeah, because of
Why?
her issue of blood. I think that
Oh,
that
like
would have made her.
societally,
Yeah,
yeah.
society, that would have made her thing. But yeah, no, there's a ton of people that Jesus would, I guess, in some ways go out of his way to meet and talk to, such as the woman at the well. I was trying to remember her. Then at the same time, when he meets people of status, he doesn't necessarily treat them differently, right? So he really did have a way of treating everyone as equal, not based on their societal standing at that time.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times influencers kind of draw us in because we feel like we feel like we can relate to them, but also it feels like they're kind of, because it's a common interest, right? You feel like you can kind of learn from them, and they've earned your trust in whatever it is that they're doing. But I feel like Jesus kind of had it the other way around, whereas he was relating to the people like on a personal level, like making like on a personal level, he could make you feel as though you were welcome and you belonged and you were a person that mattered in the world. Because, like you said, a lot of these people were like social pariahs, right? They were untouchable. No one wanted to associate with them. But yet he went and he like looked them in the eyes, right? And was like, hey, like you have a purpose here for like some way you matter. And then I think that was that was like one of the most important things he did, I feel like, because when you can make people feel like they matter and they are important, then I feel like regardless of whatever it is you're preaching or you're sharing, they're gonna listen to you.
And to that, when you look at the woman with the issue of blood,
Mhm.
what is kind of along the lines of what you're saying about making her feel important was when she touched his garment,
Yep.
she's healed.
Mhm.
He didn't have to address it.
Yeah.
He could have just kept walking. He would have known she was healed. She knew she was healed, and that's it.
Yeah.
But instead, he stops everyone and is like, oh no, I want to know who touched, even though, I mean, it's Jesus. He obviously
Yeah.
knew, but like,
It was more of like the social like spectacle kind of thing. Yeah.
well, I don't even think it's the spectacle of it. I think it's, as you were saying, to make her know
That he knew.
that he knew,
Okay.
right? That like to make her feel important,
Mhm.
right? It wasn't enough for her to be healed, which is the miracle in and of itself.
Yep.
But again, looking at it from that time period, she probably was in a place of like exclusion from the rest of people.
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't enough for her to now be healed, right? But it was also for him to say acknowledge her, because she probably just hadn't been acknowledged as a person in such a long time.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
as you were saying, I think you kind of like hit it right on. Just Jesus made people feel important.
Yeah, so like that's in Luke 8, and then in verse 48, after like he acknowledges her, he's like then he says to her, daughter, your faith has healed you, go in peace. Right? So the fact that he even like took the time out to be like, hey, power has left me, right? Someone has touched me. I feel like that in itself is a big gesture, but just to come down to her and be like on like a one-on-one level and be like, daughter, that's just like it just kind of makes you feel even closer to him, because everyone's heard of, like at this point, everyone's heard of Jesus and what he does and who he's supposed to be. But the fact that he, like the Messiah that has come back to save them, has addressed me as his daughter, it kind of, any doubts that she might have had that, oh, this is just a coincidence, I feel like that would have just put it like over the edge.
And to that, it's not like it was just with her that he did that, because
Mhm.
when you look at the woman at the well,
Mhm.
right? Typically, and I think we spoke about this a few weeks ago, right?
Yep.
Jesus would have, or Jewish people would have avoided the entire town
Like an
and
extra
add
2
like
days,
add
yeah.
extra days to their travel. And instead, he goes straight to the well and meets her there, right? The same thing with the woman caught in adultery,
Mhm.
right? She's thrown at his feet. He gets down
Yep.
to her level to talk to her, right? He could have stood over her and just been like, "Hey, I don't remember what he says, but there's no one here to
Oh yeah.
throw rocks at you." I totally blanked on what he says there, which is really bad.
Which part, like the no one with someone with no sin throw the
No,
stone,
what
or
he says
after
to
that?
her.
To her directly.
Yeah. Wow. All right, yeah. But he said something to her that was really profound.
Oh, he was like, "See, there's no one here."
There we go. Yeah, he says that to her, right? But again, Jesus had this habit of not just meeting people at like a physical location, but meeting them almost, I want to say, kind of like a mental or like
I was gonna say, like,
emotional
a
place.
spiritual level.
Well, that too. But yeah, it wasn't just physical. He met
Yeah.
them like
Deeper.
whole body where they are. Yeah.
I don't know why I thought you were gonna hit my drink.
Why would I do
I
that?
don't know. Yeah. So, well, okay. So, what expectations do you think most of the people that follow Jesus had? Like, of him? Like, I know a lot of people expected him to be like a teacher, but what does it mean? Like, are you just gonna preach like a mass message, or like what? There are many different types of teachers.
I think they more so expected miracles, right? I think it's hard to follow Jesus for what was it, 3.5 years, and
Mm.
see him perform all of these miracles and not expect him in some ways to like one up himself like
Every
the
time.
next um I mean I just think like, you know, if I know someone that can do something amazing,
Mhm.
or not even that, like if you see um like a really good like athlete or something, every time they go to perform, you kind of expect that they're gonna somehow one up themselves, right? So I think the same thing with Jesus as he's performing these miracles. I would imagine they would have expected him to do bigger and better things every single time. And then there is also just the cultural aspect that they thought he was going to actually just like take over and rule as well,
Like as a king,
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just take, you know, free them from Roman occupation and take over. So there's that as well.
Yeah, I think because even in the Bible it does say that like if all of the miracles that he done were written down, like no one would be able to contain the amount of stories or miracles that were done. And I think when you because I had never put that into perspective before, like until we started like prepping for Easter, because that's part of the that's in there. Um, so when I think about it, like, can you imagine having been to every single one of these miracles, like all the amount of stories you'd have to tell other people, like, and just spread the gospel to them?
And so, and like one of the reasons I got included in the Easter stuff is it's one of my favorite parts of the story of Jesus that no one talks about, right? The fact that John goes and says at the end of the book of the Gospel of John says there's so many things that Jesus did, there's not enough paper to write it all down,
Mhm.
right? Which is a wild thing to think about because just with what he did, there's a couple of resurrections, there's healing, there's all these things, yet John is like, we barely scratched the surface
Yeah,
of
which is
what he
wild because he
Mhm.
was only really teaching and preaching for like 3 years.
did. Yep. Right? Which means that more than likely, when you think about it, um, when he did have encounters with people, they were just highlighting one
Yeah.
encounter for like that moment in time, which probably means when the woman with the issue of blood again, when she touched, there was probably other people that touched his clothes and power
Mhm.
left.
Yeah.
There's no reason to believe there weren't other people who were just as desperate as she was. Right? I mean, like the story with the other one we were talking about, the woman at the well,
Mhm.
right? The story kind of stops when the rest of the town comes
meets
to
him.
Jesus.
Mhm.
I'm sure he did stuff there while he's there. Yeah, I mean, we get a few stories of Jesus on boats, like calming the water and stuff. I mean, that's probably the primary way to travel, right? So there's like I'm just saying, there's so many things that we probably don't know that Jesus did.
Mhm.
And I totally forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, I just want to add that in. I guess at
It's
this point,
wild, right?
it's wild, yeah.
So, I think so when we put that into perspective, that Jesus had so many different encounters and he had so many like documented instances where he was preaching to these mass amounts of people. How? Because it must have been really hard for him to like zoom in. I feel like for me, it would be really hard to zoom in and focus on one specific person or one specific encounter, right?
I think for us, it would be hard,
Yeah.
right? I think for him, it's not.
Well, yeah.
Because he's got, but like I also think a big part of it is he,
Because he knew who he was gonna like
well I think it's
encounter.
not that he knew who he was in an encounter. I think it's he knew what people were looking for, right? Which changes, I think, how you approach them, right? So something where even when you look at the him feeding the 5,000, right? After all of that teaching, which I still don't understand how that works, that one man without a microphone or megaphone spoke to 5,000 people. Like that, I feel like that's the real miracle in that story. But
But isn't there like if the spacing is right, your voice will like bounce off of it?
I mean, from my understanding, they were just on a mountainside, so it's not like they were like in a cave or
Yeah.
something where his voice is echoing. But I think when he now feeds all these people, right? Again, well, what do they need? Well, he probably, I think, if I remember correctly, he teaches the Beatitudes, right? I'm sure he taught other things, but then he also goes on and says, "Oh, well, there's this physical need. I can hit everyone right now, right?
You know?
Right? There's these different instances where you see Jesus, I think, teaching, and I think the Bible may not tell exactly what he was teaching, but I think he was teaching what those
They
people
needed.
needed to hear in that moment,
Yeah.
right? So I think because he was, and I think we often forget that Jesus has this relationship with the Father where he knows what needs to be done. So when he goes out to meet with people and teach with people and interact with people, he knows already ahead of time, hey, this is what's needed, right? And I think that, again, going back to like one of the first points you made about him just making people feel like they mattered, right? Him being able to do that,
Yeah.
right? I know we've spoken before about like times when like not a random, but like maybe like an old friend or something would reach out and just maybe ask like, how are you doing? Like, you know, or I've been thinking about you, and the profound effect that could have on you
Yeah.
in
like,
that
if it's the
moment.
right time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think for Jesus, I think that's what he does, right? He
Yeah.
just has these small, profound moments with like everyone.
That's wild. I feel like that's exhausting.
It probably is.
Oh.
It probably is.
My little introvert, extrovert heart can't take that. Whoa. But I think it's important for us to try to kind of cultivate that kind of individual experience with people. Just because that also was how he built his influence, right? So I'm not saying you're going to go up to everyone and like, my child to them, you know? But how can we cultivate that skill? I'll call it a skill of like making people feel that kind of warmth and welcome from us.
Again, I think it goes back to some of the conversations we had previously in our last series about Jesus, where we talked about being more and more Christ-like, right?
Okay.
That sanctification, right? That process of becoming more and more Christ-like. I think when we're doing that, that makes it easier for us to treat people in that way in which they're going to leave feeling important, special. I think one of the biggest things is they're going to leave feeling that they've been heard, right?
Yes,
that their
that's such
voice
a
was
big
heard,
thing.
right?
Mhm.
So I think the more we subject ourselves to the sanctification process, the process of becoming more Christ-like, the more we'll see that our interactions with people will change, and our interactions will be more Christ-like in that
And
sense.
I think along with that, a lot of times God will tell you like what to say or like how to respond to certain things. Or like sometimes I'll be praying about something and he'll bring someone to mind and I'll reach out to them and then, oh, it's like that was for that reason. Or like certain little things. So like as you do subject yourself to this process of sanctification, he kind of opens your eyes to what it is that you should be doing as well. And I think that was one of the biggest I don't know what the word is, but like that was like because Jesus had such a close relationship with God as like his personal father, right? And he had that such a tight knit like walk with him every day, talk with him every day, such a strong like depth, like relationship of depth. That was also why it was so easy for him to have those one-on-one interactions with everyone else around him.
Well, and again, I think that goes to just like, so for me, like I was having a conversation with, I had 3 conversations, right, that I'll bring up. The first one, someone called me like, hey, can I just talk to you real quick? I was like, sure, whatever, give me a call. They called me, and like the gravity of the situation they were calling me about, I was like, I am not mentally, emotionally, spiritually prepared to talk to you about this, right? because it was just such a heavy topic, and I was like,
Ooh.
and like for some reason they chose me, and I was like, did you mean to call my dad? Like, did you have like the wrong what happened?
Happy.
Like what happened here, right? Or maybe you meant to call my mom. Like what's going on here, right? Because she be talking to a lot of people. I'm like, you sure? You want me? I can add them into the call. Like what's going on? Like, because again, and it's not someone that I'm extremely close to or anything. So I didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden they just hit me with. I'm like, in my head as they're talking, I like muted my phone. I was just like, God, please don't let me just sit here in silence. And like that was honestly, that was the prayer I had.
Not even
God,
like, God, tell me what to say. God, help me help them.
yeah, like honestly, I was like, God, please don't, like, for whatever reason, this person decided, hey, I can trust Kevin with this stuff. God, please don't let me like say something stupid here,
Okay.
right? Or worse, just not say anything, because clearly they're looking for advice on situations I have never dealt with in my entire life.
Some kind of response.
Right? So give me some type of response. Now, to the flip side of that, one of my friends, we're hanging out, and he's like telling me certain things that are like happening, and we're just kind of like updating each other on each other's lives. And it's like, yeah, this and this happened, and I may have to like make all these big like life changes, but my wife doesn't want to. Like, she wants to just pack up everything and leave. Not leave him, but like
okay.
just pack up and like leave where they are and this and that. And I was like, for him though, I think because I am closer to them, right? And I have, and there are people that like, they're close enough to me that like I pray for them regularly and things. All of a sudden I was like, oh no, I know how to, like, I knew exactly what to say, right? It became so much easier. Even then, randomly, like, his wife and I were talking, and she brought up the exact same thing, like her side of it, and I was like, did he tell you that, like, he told me his side? Like, what's going on here? And then again, she's saying her, and I was like, okay, like, have the two of you talk, like, but like, I don't want to go in detail there, but like,
Yeah.
I was in a position where, because I'm praying for them and things like that, I felt more equipped to actually like talk to them and not put my foot in my mouth when I'm talking to them. So I do think, going back to looking at the example Jesus gives us, right? The closer you are to God, right? When you come into these situations, right? I think God gives you the grace, I guess, to really know what to say in those situations and handle it accordingly.
Yeah.
I feel like that deserves a.
I wasn't just end the episode right there.
Oh. I was gonna ask one more question, but I mean, wait, you said you had 3 conversations. Did the wife and the husband? Those were separate. Oh, okay.
Separate
Okay.
conversation. Yeah.
So I guess if we're gonna keep going a little bit.
I mean, I'm sure I've had other conversations. You want me to just pull one out the air, like?
No, I meant like with the conversation as a whole. I was
yeah.
gonna ask if you've ever had a zoom lens moment where you kind of focus on something specific in the middle of a larger instance.
Yeah, I have.
I don't know if I have, or if I have, maybe I just don't recall.
I actually had one with you in church,
Woo!
like years ago, and it seared into my brain, but I'm not gonna say it.
Can you tell me after?
Yeah.
Have you told me before?
I think I brought it up once.
Because I feel like okay.
What was the question?
Have you ever had a zoom lens moment?
But yeah, I have. I mean, it happens a lot. I think, for me, mostly like in church. It's happened in a few instances in some previous jobs, because I worked with kids, and like sometimes you kind of notice, hey, like there's.
Yeah.
And I think you had kind of touched on it in like with like.
Do you know what? Yeah, I was thinking
Kids
about it
ministry,
further, and I
like
feel on a
sometimes you
smaller
notice,
scale,
yeah,
but
you
not like a
noticing
super
things.
dramatic like end it there.
Right.
Right. Later.
Is that really it?